the gentleman just mentioned that Manchester United have had a long-standing interest in Lewis-Skelly. So let's cross live now to Dan Khan, who is with United. Dan, United need a left-back and a centre midfielder, so Myles Lewis-Skelly fits the bill.
Yeah, he does, Mike. And look, we reported Manchester United's interest in Myles Lewis-Skelly in the end of March, I should say. And he was very much on that list for potential left-backs going into the summer. However, I think the importance he had at Arsenal come the end of the season, starting that Champions League final, talking about how he had essentially trained for 6 months to be a midfielder. I think that just seemed a bit improbable. Also, when you consider the price tag and valuation, you would imagine Myles Lewis-Skelly would be around for Manchester United. We have seen them priced out of certain moves, especially in that midfield area, like Mateus Fernandes, Elliot Anderson, another example of that. For me right now, Mike, in my opinion, this would be very unlikely for Manchester United to pursue. I would also imagine, I think we've talked about Lewis Hall quite a lot on these shows, I would imagine, although it seems very unrealistic, he would probably be their number one target. Whether they pursue him this summer or potentially next summer, I think we'll wait and find out. But I think for now, it feels very much like Myles Lewis-Skelly seems unlikely, although he's very much someone those at Manchester United admire and are aware of.
Now, we know Marcus Rashford has joined up with the squad. What's the latest on his future?
Yeah, look, I just spent an hour or two just around the Manchester United camp, Mike, and I have to say it's very positive. And, you know, you could argue, could that have been disrupted with the story of Marcus Rashford returning to Manchester United, having not featured for the club for over 18 months, having 2 loan spells away. But look, he's been welcomed back into this squad, into this atmosphere with open arms. You know, it's very interesting that someone like Yuri Tillmans has joined the club, who he spent 6 months with at Aston Villa. So very interesting to hear his thoughts maybe on his former teammate and now new teammate at Manchester United. Michael Carrick is another factor here, Mike. He is a manager and coach who knows Marcus Rashford incredibly well, not just as a former teammate, but as a coach on 2 different coaching staffs at the club as well. So his future right now, Mike, for Marcus Rashford, it is very much at Manchester United. I don't think at this stage, though, we can rule out an exit just yet. I would imagine maybe in that last week of the transfer window, there will be some clubs who will look at someone like Marcus Rashford, who could be incredibly useful and upgrade their left wing position. Now, whether that offer comes and something Manchester United entertain at the cost they want, I think we'll find out. But for now, to go back to your first question, I think Manchester United is still in the market. A few outgoings potentially, but still in the market, especially for a left-back. A forward at this stage, think unlikely with Marcus Rashford and Joshua Zirkzee still at the club. And a midfielder, we'll wait and find out. But for now, my bets would be on a left-back come the end of the transfer window.
Myles Lewis-Skelly to Manchester United. Yes, the Arsenal Academy graduate who has broken into the first team, impressed at the highest level, and established himself as one of the most promising young defenders in English football. Reports are now linking Manchester United with a potential move for Lewis-Skelly, and if this develops into something serious, it could become one of the most controversial Premier League transfers of the summer. Because this isn't simply about signing another young player. This is about Manchester United potentially trying to take a player directly from Arsenal. A player Arsenal have developed themselves. A player who represents the future of their squad. And a player who has already shown that he can perform under enormous pressure. There is no confirmed agreement between Manchester United and Arsenal at this stage, and supporters should be extremely careful with social media claims suggesting that a deal is already done. But the reason this story deserves attention is simple. Manchester United are looking for quality, versatility, and youth. And Lewis-Skelly fits that profile almost perfectly. So what is actually happening? Why would United be interested? Would Arsenal even consider selling? And most importantly, could Manchester United really convince Lewis-Skelly to leave the Emirates for Old Trafford? Let's break down the story. One of the biggest priorities is building a younger team capable of competing consistently at the highest level. And that brings us to Myles Lewis-Skelly. The Arsenal Academy graduate has become one of the most intriguing young players in English football. His rise has been extremely quick. He came through Arsenal's youth system, developed into a highly versatile player, and then made the jump into senior football. What makes Lewis-Skelly particularly interesting is that he doesn't look like a traditional young fullback. He has the technical ability to operate in midfield. He is comfortable receiving possession under pressure. He can carry the ball forward. He has the confidence to step into central areas. And defensively, he has shown a willingness to compete physically rather than simply sitting deep. That versatility is precisely why a club like Manchester United could be interested. United are not simply looking for players who can fill one position. They need footballers who can give their manager multiple tactical options. And Lewis-Skelly provides exactly that. But there is an enormous problem. Arsenal have absolutely no obvious reason to sell him. Arsenal's perspective is crucial. From Arsenal's point of view, this is not simply another player sitting on the transfer list. Lewis-Skelly represents the club's investment in its own academy. He represents the pathway from Hale End to the first team. And perhaps most importantly, he represents the type of player Arsenal want to build around for the future. That changes the entire conversation. If Manchester United were interested in an established player who Arsenal were prepared to move on from, negotiations would be straightforward. But Lewis-Skelly is different. Arsenal have spent years developing him. They have already seen him make the difficult transition into senior football. And now they have a young player who can potentially become an important part of the squad for many years. So even if Manchester United were prepared to make a substantial financial proposal, Arsenal would have to ask themselves one question. Why would we strengthen a direct Premier League rival with one of our own young stars? That is the obstacle United would have to overcome. And it is a very big one. Why Manchester United could like Lewis-Skelly. Now let's look at this from Manchester United's perspective. The club have been trying to reshape their squad. They need younger players. They need technically capable players. And they need footballers who can handle the physical demands of the Premier League. Lewis-Skelly ticks several of those boxes. He has already experienced Premier League football. He has already played in high-pressure matches. He has already been exposed to European competition. And unlike a young player arriving from another league, there would be no major question about whether he can adapt to English football. He already knows it. He already understands the intensity.